Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be manipulating formulas and you will be able to do 4.10. Today students will be able to manipulate formulas to solve for a variable and describe its meaning. But before we do that, let's find simple equations. It says you have 5 boxes of blueberries. So this is you. Your friend has 3 boxes of blueberries. This is your friend. So you have 5 boxes, your friend has 3 boxes, and then it says if you eat 82 blueberries, you eat them, so whoops, 82 not 28, then you will both have the same amount. So it says find an equation that describes the scenario. In here, if we put it together, is 5x, which is the 5 boxes of blueberries, and you eat 82, you will have the same amount that your friend who has 3x. How many blueberries are in each box? Well, to figure that out, all you have to do is subtract 5x from both sides. This cancels, and you get negative 82 equals 3x minus 5x is negative 2x. We divide both sides by negative 2. This cancels, and so x is equal to negative divided by negative is positive. 82 divided by 2 is 41. So how many blueberries are in each box? There are 41 blueberries. Whoops. In each box. So in here, taking these steps will be important to solving formulas for one specific variable. So in here you have the inverse operations. Addition and subtraction are inverse of each other. Multiplication and division are inverse of each other. And raising to a power, or squaring I should say, is the opposite of taking the square root. Okay, in here it would be depending on the type of exponent or index. Okay, now it says in here, you spent $60. You can buy $4 coconuts or $3 pineapples. Find an equation that describes the scenario. So you spent $60. You can buy $4 coconuts or $3 pineapple. It says find the equation that describes the amount of coconuts. It's just solving for C. And so if we have 4C plus 3P equals 60, we want to leave C by itself, so we're going to subtract the other entire term. So minus 3P minus 3P. And so 4C equals negative 3P, because we usually put or write the terms that have variables and then the constant at the end. Finally, if we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide by 4. And so I'm going to write it over here. On the left of the equal sign, you only are left with C. And then in here, you can check to see if you can simplify. So you do each term for, so negative 3P divided by 4, you cannot simplify, so you just put it as negative 3 over 4 of P. And then you do the second term. I call this the pretzel because it looks like a pretzel. And then positive divided by positive is positive. 60 divided by 4 is 15. And so now you have it in terms of coconuts. So what does that mean? That if the only piece of information that you're missing is the coconuts, all you do is, and you know how many pineapples you are buying, you can place it in here, multiply it and divide it, add 15, and that's how you will find the number of coconuts. And here it says find the equation that describes the amount of pineapples bought. So now you're leaving P by itself. And yeah, I don't know why I like piña colada, so pineapple and coconut go better than orange. Some people might like oranges better, so okay, so again we start with the same. 4C plus 3P equals 60. But now we want to find in terms of P. So what we're going to subtract, if we want to leave P by itself, is get rid of that for C on both sides. We're subtracting the other term, okay? And so we have 3P is equals to negative 4C plus 60. If we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide both sides by 3. That cancels, and we end up with P by itself. So P equals, again, we do the same thing, the pretzel, negative 4 over 3. We cannot simplify. We don't want a mixed number. So negative 4 over 3 of C. And then this one we can divide. 60 divided by 3 is 20. Again, this will be in terms of pineapples. And it says, what do this describe? So out of these two, the first one helps you find the number of coconuts you will buy based on how many pineapples you already know that you bought. And for this one, you will be able to find out how many pineapples based on the number of coconuts that you already bought. Okay? How would you say that in words? The first helps you find the number of coconuts you can buy. If number of pineapples, and it goes together, sorry, is known. And the second one will help you find out how many. And the second can help you find the number of pineapples if the number of coconuts is known. Pause the video if you need to copy that so that we can move on. And although this is not a science class, but it helps to know the algebra so that we can understand a little bit of the formula that Einstein came up with. And this is in relation to the electricity. So the E stands for the energy, M stands for the mass, and C squared is the speed of light squared. They already gave us the formula, but then in here it says solve for mass. So you start with the formula. To solve for mass just means leave that by itself. And so if this is multiplication, all you're doing is dividing by C squared. This cancels, and so the mass can be found by dividing the energy by square of the speed of light. And that's all you have to do. Some people prefer to have the isolated variable first, so put m equals E over C squared. Now what if it says solve speed of light? So we have E is equals to mc squared. Divide by m. This cancels, and I have E over m equals, since this cancels, you only have C squared. Since you're squaring, the opposite of square is the square root. You do that to both sides, and so the speed of light is equals to the square root of E divided by m. Again, you can leave it like that, or if it's better, you can switch it. Okay, now what do these describe? You have the energy, you have the speed of light, and you just square it, and that will help you find the mass. For this one, you're missing the speed of light, so you have the energy and you have the mass. So for the first one, the formula will help you find the mass. Find the mass. And again, it means you have the energy and you have the speed of light squared, or you can just square it. For the second, this one right here, You can find the speed of light because you have the energy and the mass of the object. Okay, I wasn't letting you see, so pause the video so you can copy it, and let's go to the next one. You can see you're just basically canceling to solve for the variable that they're asking you to isolate. And so in here it says solve for R. So I'm going to be telling you what these are. And basically this is the volume 1/3 times pi times r squared, okay, the volume of a cone. When they're asking you to solve for r, that means that we don't know the radius, but we know pi and we know the volume. So if we're multiplying by 1/3, the opposite is to divide by 1/3. This cancels. And so whenever we're dividing a whole number or a whole variable divided by a fraction, all we do is put it over 1. We multiply the outer values and the inner values. The outer values go first, so 3 times v is 3v. 1 times 1 is over 1. But since we're dividing by 1, in reality, it just is 3v divided by 1 is just 3v. These cancel because you're doing opposite operations. And you are left with pi r squared. This is multiplication. The opposite is to divide by pi. And I'm just going to take advantage of that one that looks like a little stick. So divide by pi. This cancels and you get r squared is equals to 3v over pi. Now we have radius squared, but we need to have radius by itself. So the opposite of squaring is square root. And if we do it on one side, we do it on the other. These cancel each other. And now we just have the radius is equals to. We cannot simplify anything in here, so we just write it the way it is. We keep the square root, the 3v, and divide by pi. Everything inside of the square root. And so that's how you would find. Again, if we already have the volume, you just put it in there, multiply by 3 and divide by 3.14. After that, we take the square root and that gives us the radius. But this one, it says solve for x. That means we're going to leave this by itself. We cannot touch that term until we get rid of other terms. So if we're adding b, the opposite is to subtract b. This cancels. You get ax is equals to, we put the variable term first, negative b plus 4. They're not like terms because one has a variable and the other one doesn't. It's not a 6, it's b. Then if we're multiplying, I'm going to divide by 8 so that I can leave x by itself. But if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other. And here we have x equals. We cannot divide any of these two terms by a because this is not a number. If it was a 2, then you would be able to divide this one, and we could do similar to the first ones that we did. But in here we can't simplify, so we just leave it like that. Negative b plus 4 divided by a. And that's our new formula when we're solving for x. For the next one, we have p equals 2w plus 2l. Solve for w. So in here, this p stands for perimeter. And the perimeter of a rectangle is always 2 widths plus 2 lengths. And let's say when they're giving you the perimeter and they're giving you the length, we have to find the width. This is what they want us to have to come up with a formula that will help us find the width. Again, we want to solve for w, so the first thing we need to do is get rid of 2l. If we subtract on one side, we have to subtract on the other. So perimeter minus 2 lengths is equals to 2 widths. But we don't want to know for 2 widths. We need to know for one of them. And so we divide by 2. This cancels. And so we notice in here that the p cannot be divided by 2, but the negative 2l can be divided. Okay? So the w is equals to p divided by 2. We put it as p over 2 or 1/2 of the perimeter. Either way is fine. So p over 2 or 1/2 of perimeter. That's the same thing. And then negative divided by positive is negative. And 2L divided by 2, the 2 cancel, so it's just negative L. So if we want to switch it, the W is equals to 1/2 of the perimeter, or perimeter divided by 2, minus 1 length. Okay? And so that will be my new formula to be able to find the width. Now this formula, you might be familiar with it as well. It's circumference equals 2 pi r, or the circumference is equals to 2 times pi times the radius. And again, they want us to solve for r, meaning the radius. This is easy because all of them are multiplication. So you can, in multiplication, you can just take the entire other ones that you're not canceling. If we're multiplying times pi and times 2, we can divide by 2 pi all at once, only when all of them are multiplying. Okay, and so if we're multiplying and dividing by 2 pi, then we can cancel the 2 pi and we're left with the radius. And so in here we cannot simplify anything, so it's just the circumference divided by 2 pi will give us the radius. So radius is equals to the circumference divided by 2 pi, and that's how I could find the radius of a circle if I'm giving the circumference. And that's basically all, because pi, we already know that it's always 3.14. About, actually. With this, we end our lesson. If you can please give us a thumbs up, subscribe around here. This is the link to the entire unit. Here will be the next lesson of the next unit, because this is the last lesson for this unit. Now you're able to do 4.10 and have fun.